Germany resolve to improve trade relations and promote democratic principles.
We are fighting terrorism, and that is improving. We still need very much support in that area.
Speaker, House of Representatives welcomes directive on compulsory treatment and care for victims of gunshots.
Minister of Health and Social Welfare reiterates the strategic role of the health sector in the renewed hope agenda.
And on Good Morning Nigeria today, we will discuss ongoing reforms in the advertising industry.
In a country with a large and diverse consumer market like Nigeria, advertising is essential for businesses to stand out, gain visibility, and build reputation.
That's right, Henry. Now, it's also important that the role of regulation in advertising, as experience has shown, that if advertisers are not held accountable, consumers will be left wide open to false claims and, in some instances, dangerous practices.
That's absolutely true, Kingsley. And similarly, there is a growing awareness in Nigeria of these problems, and authorities have started to make a move in addressing them through reforms. They are aware of the damage that could be done to both the consumer and to the advertising industry itself, and also the huge revenue loss to the country if the industry is not properly regulated.
Now, from the 1st of January this year, 2023, the Advertising Regulatory Council of Nigeria, ACON, adopted a number of reforms to chart a new course for the industry. Now, for instance, ACON has deregulated media rates and also introduced the 45-day industry credit policy. Now, it's also insisting on a cumulative 75% of local content in all adverts and marketing directed at the Nigerian market, observing that this would create well over 500,000 jobs annually and prevent capital flight.
And it does not end there. Other guidelines from ACON says models and voiceover artists must be Nigerian. Production of advertisement, and the marketing communication materials must be done in Nigeria. Ambience should reflect Nigeria as much as possible. Production crew may include foreigners. However, Nigerians and Nigerian organizations must partake in the production. Also, post-production may be done in any location within or outside Nigeria.
Now, these reforms are apparently not going down well with Advertisers Association of Nigeria, and no wonder they've taken legal action against ACON to challenge the constitutional rights of the regulatory authority in respect of the reforms introduced.
So the question is, would these ongoing reforms by ACON actually help in developing and sanitizing the advertising industry? A panel of guests will be focusing on this and other issues on Good Morning Nigeria today. I'm Henry John. You're welcome.
And I'm Kingsley Osadolo, and it's my great pleasure to welcome back my colleague, Henry John, who has just returned from a well-deserved leave. And I'm sure our viewers who saw her several months ago would know that there is a difference.
Huge difference.
Big difference, big difference. And it is the delight of everyone, man or woman, to experience what our colleague Henry experienced, because it's successfully introduced a new life onto Mother Earth. Henry, congratulations.
Thank you so much,
and,
Kingsley.
May it be well with you and the baby.
Amen. And of course, I'm glad to be back. I missed you. I hope you missed me.
Oh, sure, big time, big time. But we didn't want to disturb you because we know that your schedule, of course, would also have been disrupted with the new cries that you're hearing around the house.
True, very true.
All right, so we are live on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority, broadcasting from our headquarters studios in Abuja. In the course of the program, we'll take, of course, the highlights of the news, business, and newspaper review. Here now is Olajide Bello, who has the morning news. Good morning, Jide.
Good morning, Kingsley and here. Good morning, Nigeria. Here is the morning news. Nigeria and Germany have resolved to improve the trade relations between the two countries while also promoting democratic principles. This was the major fallout of President Tinubu as he received the German Chancellor Olaf Scholz, who is on a two-day visit in Nigeria.
We are fighting terrorism, and that is improving. We still need very much support in that area. And for us to be able to sustain democracy, rule of law, and freedom for our people, we need to fight for democracy. And democracy must win at all times.
We see that a lot of investments have to be taken looking at infrastructure, and it's not just about roads and railways. It is also about electricity, the infrastructure, using the grid, making feasible that all the produced energy, all the power that is already there could go to the people because the grid is making it. And finding a way how we can develop economy in this field will be also important.
President of the Senate, Godswill Akpabio, says Nigeria's representation in the Executive Committee of the Interparliamentary Union will open opportunities for the country. Senator Akpabio was speaking after his return from Angola, where he attended and was elected into the Executive Committee of the IPU at the 147th session of the Assembly.
A lot of employment opportunities to be created, a lot of offices to be opened, subnational offices to be opened, and a lot of children who wish to be diplomats will have the opportunity of working there. And we also attract funding, some foreign direct investment in the area of training and retraining and capacity building, not just for legislators, but for people who are in different fields.
Speaker of the House of Representatives, Tajuddin Abbas, has tasked the National Defense College to furnish their security agencies with fresh ideas and strategies towards tackling emerging security challenges. He said this when the commandant of the college, Rear Admiral Olumuyiwa Olotu, paid him a courtesy visit while lamenting the loss of lives and property to insecurity in the country. Speaker Abbas urged the National Defense College as a research-based security institution to come up with proposals on how best to address the challenges.
The introduction of the policy significantly reduced terrorism, reduced kidnapping, and all forms of banditry. I'm sure Mr. President and we at the level of the Parliament will be very, very interested in knowing if it is a policy that we need to reintroduce back and be able to give it a better human face, if at the end of the day it will help to improve the security of this country.
The House of Representatives says it welcomes the recent directive from the Inspector General of Police to various formations and commands of the Nigeria Police Force and the application of the Compulsory Treatment and Care for Victims of Gunshots Act 2017. This was contained in a statement jointly signed by Maki Abubakar, Chairman House Committee on Police Affairs, and Akin Rotimi Jr., Chairman House Committee on Media and Public Affairs. The House views these developments from the Nigeria Police Force as timely and commendable, considering rising complaints by Nigerians about hospitals that decline prompt treatment of victims of gunshot incidents, robberies, and even vehicular accidents, who do not present police reports. The House notes via the IG's Action Office Relief that value is placed on the life of every citizen and restores confidence in our hospitals. The statement urges the Nigeria Police and the Nigerian Medical Association to follow through on these commitments to ensure strict compliance with the Act and prosecute offenders. Minister of Health and Social Welfare, Professor Lipati, and the Secretary Health Services and Environment Secretariat, Dr. Adedolapo Fashawe, have reiterated that health is the key pillar of the renewed hope agenda of the President Bola Tinubu's administration.
Now that we have other vaccine-preventable diseases, including for cancer, we believe that our traditional leaders will continue to play the role to educate our people. Take diphtheria, a very simple disease that has already afflicted thousands of children in this country. 98% of those who have had diphtheria in Nigeria were not vaccinated. So it tells you that if they had been vaccinated, they would not have that.
I think we can collaborate with government to tackle preventable maternal and child deaths and help communities realize, empower them, give them the knowledge, the resources, the information they need to make sound decisions.
The truth of the matter is our health systems need strengthening. Some of these situations, when we set up a panel for a situation like this, it is for one, to bring closure to the incident of the...
One of the mandates of the present administration is to ensure provision, maintenance and sustenance of public infrastructure. For this to be achieved, the Minister of Works, Dave Umahi, was in Lagos on an inspection tour of the upper and under deck of 4 major bridges before the work begins.
All this undesirable coating of the top mainland bridge deck, 4 inches to 12 inches. We mill everything out and we will now clean it and then relay only 2 inches asphalt on top of the top mainland bridge. And I think a total length of about 11 kilometers, 11.6 kilometers.
And that's the news for now. After this break, area and Kingsley will take you through the rest of the program. Good morning.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. It's time for business news, and we'll go over to our business desk.
What are we going to do as a country right now to start insulation?
By 2030, Nigerians' export is projected to hit $127 billion. In anticipation of the rapid growth, Nigeria is preparing for the market with Standard Chartered. Projects will double global trend with made in Nigerians goods and services.
We are on our way to having millions and millions of talents trained and also engaged in jobs and entrepreneurial ventures that would change the face of this continent and country and solve our grand challenges.
Making it easier, particularly for the large businesses that work in Nigeria currently, because they move with an ecosystem that cascades into our MSMEs. So if they are well sorted out in terms of ease of doing business, by the time we harmonize the policies and we start implementing the particular pain points to unlock a pathway to productivity, then you have a situation where we have cascading productivity, which is what the Nigerian economy needs.
And so we need to come up with ideas that will help us to export. The government must have to partner with the private sector to ensure that we take advantage of the opportunities created by the AFCFTA to see how we can leverage on such low-hanging fruits.
So much is being done by the Nigerian government to grow agricultural value chains, scale up production, and increase access to global markets for made in Nigerian goods, especially agro-allied products. With Business News, Comfort Amadu.
Many thanks, Comfort, for the business package. It's now time for newspaper review.
newspaper reviewer Chukwudi Okole Abuja is right here with us in the studios for today's review session. Chukwudi, good morning and welcome.
Good morning, Kingsley, on a bright Monday morning. Hello, look who we have here. Yere, welcome back to Good Morning Nigeria.
Thank you, good to see you.
In fact, Good Morning Nigeria, Yere is back.
They have seen me already.
How's the baby doing?
Very well, thank you.
Great girl, I should say.
Great boy.
Great boy. It's okay. A child is a child. Okay? Welcome back.
Thank you so much.
Kingsley, I hope I didn't steal your thunder. I'm welcoming her stoutly. Maybe you should have done it.
You already did it, by the way.
His mom.
Because you are behind the news.
Thank you so much.
Chukwudi, because you are behind the news.
I'm behind the news. Oh, yes, of course. You opened the program naturally. That must have happened.
So already, but I hope you had a pleasant weekend.
It's my overseas.
I hope you had a pleasant weekend.
I did.
It was a tremendous entertainment at the weekend.
Yes.
I mean, those lovers of soccer would have seen what happened across some of the best leagues around the world. It was great. A classical game was on display.
I knew you would start with that.
No, well, let me end with that. But
you're not ending with that. 5-0 trouncing by Arsenal is something to mention.
Absolutely.
But jokes aside, what is Bellingham up to? He's not a striker.
Well, it's an attacking midfielder, and it's just converted the entire Real Madrid attacking machine into his 2 feet. But more essentially, that's part of the lesson to learn from that. It is not just that you are watching a great game. When a manager introduces a change, and that change produces results, you must then admire what the manager and that change agent have brought on. I'm talking about Luka Modric. Luka Modric, one of the world's greatest midfielders. You remember, he's the captain of the Croatian national team, and he won the Ballon d'Or. That's the best footballer of the year after the World Cup in 2018. Yes. And once he was introduced, you could see the signaling he was giving to the defenders. Yes. He, of course, is a midfielder. He rearranged the defense, rearranged the midfield, and the 2 goals that Real Madrid scored were as a result of the display in the midfield. So they put Barcelona on the back foot, and then, of course, created an opportunity for Bellingham, that blast of a goal that gave the equalizer. And then the second one, which was the winner, of course, was a tap-in from Bellingham after an assist by Luka Modric.
Yes, Modric, you could actually say he's the Methuselah of Real Madrid. I mean, his age, and he's still doing that.
On Saturday when they played, he was 38 years and 47 days old. He's the oldest player to have participated in a Clasico.
Wow.
38 years. By today now, he's already 38 years and 49 days. So, of course, let's go over to the Premier League. You already said that Arsenal blasted to smithereens, Sheffield United.
But I said something about Chelsea. Everybody is saying, Chelsea and Arsenal, cat and dog life. I told them, Chelsea has done the right thing. Those diminishing returns players, tired old legs, they've been swept up. Chelsea is now the youngest EPL team. But I told them something they need experience.
Yeah.
Chelsea will shockingly win some matches and shockingly lose some matches. That's their stage.
Absolutely. I agree with you, Chukwudi. But of course, I was just wondering why Man City couldn't give some respect to Man U yesterday. Just some respect. Because I mean, the world and Man U, they're still mourning the loss of Sir Bobby Charlton, a great Man U player, a great England player, part of the United States success team. And then you just took them home. I hope home 3-0. I mean, that's what kind of
I told them they will sack Ten Hag in October. I've not been proved right yet.
October ends tomorrow.
Okay, now let's leave football and look at what the papers are saying this morning. I have the Daily Trust, and looking at the Borders headline here, it starts with this kicker: pay rise. Federal government yet to pay 79.3 billion naira peculiar allowance 7 months after. And the writer says to Sun ultimatum ends tomorrow. Supplementary budget stalls payment in agencies. NLC alleges lack of capacity to manage wages, and Finance Ministry mum. Above the lead story on the Daily Trust this morning, we have Power Ministry Minister yet to give policy directive after 2 months in office. You can find details on page 20 of the paper. We also have Nigeria-Chinese firms sign 365 billion naira contract to upgrade distribution lines. And just looking away from the top of the Daily Trust this morning, looking at the picture story right here, we have many feared dead as boat with over 100 passengers capsizes in Taraba. Details on page 4. Beside the picture story, we have bandits kill only teacher in Kaduna community. Page 6 has all the details. And then we have federal government plans reabsorption of retired military officers, and UN raises alarm as food stores ransacked in Gaza. Okay, that's the march on the front page of the Daily Trust this morning.
Okay, we also have the New Telegraph newspaper, and above the nameplate says 13% derivation. Oil producing states receive 469.7 billion naira. Diaspora remittance, Nigeria falls behind Egypt with $20.1 billion. APC and PDP bicker over Adeleke's 100 billion naira infrastructure project. Workers' rights violation, NLC to shut down economic activities in Imo Wednesday. NNPP crisis, Southeast ESCO ratifies Kwankwanso's expulsion, endorses Eniombonam as founder. End of an era as King Ado Ibrahim dies at 95. Tinubu, ACF, and others pay tribute. Ado Ibrahim, of course, was the Ohinoi of Igbira land. So Igbiras worldwide are in mourning. Government of national unity. Opposition's conduct after Supreme Court verdict will determine Tinubu's decision. That's according to Marafat. APC's petition to NBA, confirmation of planned intimidation and harassment of our leaders. That's according to Labour Party. Allow Tinubu to concentrate. Olubadan pleads with opposition. Many fear dead as boat with over 100 passengers capsizes in Taraba. Now, federal government to import 1 billion naira equipment to fix Eko Bridge. Distractions over, Tinubu tells German Chancellor. And seeks support in fight against insecurity and terrorism. Navy launches new offshore patrol vessel. Legislative oversight functions can't work without adequate funding. That's according to the Director General of the Institute of Legislative and Democratic Studies. Now, study, extended sitting time might be aging brain faster. So the longer you sit, according to the study, the faster your brain ages. So we'd also take a look at the Daily Times newspaper. Once in a while, we do get the grand old Daily Times. Nigeria to Houston, the red fly soon. That's according to the federal government. Showdown looms as NLC Uzodinma Lockhorns Wednesday. Said will hold him responsible if anything happens. Government uses fierce coercion on state labor leaders. It says blatant lie. Labor government close. That's Uzodinma's spokesman. NLC wants federal government to stabilize Naira or. And then soon judgments. Confusion grips Oyo over conflicting verdicts from same judge. And state government was set to hand Alaoye staff of office. Appeal court may settle matter. Lead team assembled. Now, PDP national women leader dead. Party mourns. PDP national women's leader dead. Party mourns. APC stalwart warns Wike's critics. Nigeria sick because lawbreakers treated with kid gloves. That's according to the Olu of Warri. All right. Chukudi.
APC stalwarts warn Wike's critics so they don't do what? Or so that what?
So they don't destabilize him.
Let Wike just keep being Wike on the field of campaign. When I talk about campaign now, I mean the implementation turf. If he is going to be the Wike that is known in Port Harcourt and other suburbs of Rivers in those days, he is going to be Wike, and that's what's going to matter. So let people stop acting advisory roles on his behalf. That does not matter. People can say whatever they like about you. It's what you do to influence the life of the people that actually matters. And German Chancellor Olaf Scholz is wishing the president a happy settling down to governance, because he says distractions are over. Effectively, distractions should be effectively over, because the Supreme Court has ruled. And I need to say here that I am still one of those who believe that all these court processes and all that, they are to the, goodness. They are for the goodness of our continuous climb on the ladder of democracy. Let them come in all the cycles of elections as many as they want to come. What is interesting is that any country that hopes to move forward will take a lesson from all those things and will get better the next time. So no problem. But I pray that Mr. President is going to be the broad-minded man I have always known him to be. I called him the other time a negotiator. I meant it. Let him be himself and continue governing Nigeria with his team, with the National Assembly, the judiciary, and the rest of it, without showing any bitterness to anybody. Nigeria is of the utmost importance. So I like the German Chancellor's comments about the president now free of distractions. Let us settle down to governance. There's a rather acrid one coming from the Daily Trust. They are saying that the power minister has yet to give policy directive after 2 months in office. I saw the headline and I felt it's one of those, the cup is half full of water, bits of journalism, half empty of water. Well, I don't know what their findings are. What they are saying is that he has not come out with a very eloquent and a clear direction as to what he wants to do with the power ministry. He said he will bring the country's power generation to 20 megawatts from the current 4,500 megawatts. It's still a proposition. I pray that he's able to get down to brass tacks and get people moving towards that direction. But what I think matters to me now, maybe it matters to other people, is that FG Chinese consortiums have signed 365 billion naira contract to upgrade distribution lines. 4,500 megawatts is not an awful capacity for a country as large as Nigeria. Cairo only does about 45,000, I read somewhere, so we're not there yet. But I want to point out that when I was a NEPA clerk, the DO then Benin region, Martin Zobi, one of the men who have left an indelible mark on my memory, said, Chukwudi, generation is not quite the problem of Nigeria. I think it is now. In his time, no. Distribution has always been the problem. So when I heard Mr. Ngelali talking when he was serving the previous government, talking about the Siemens arrangement that will help us distribute power, I was very happy about it. But so far, it has not quite happened the way I thought it was going to happen. So the signing of this memorandum, which is also to work on distribution lines upgrade, is something that people are going to feel if eventually they get on the ground and get it implemented. Distribution is a problem. Where I am, my access in the FCT here, the supply has not been quite good. Voltage level has not been something to really write home about. They became erratic. I was beginning to praise them, and it doesn't augur well for them because many of us are now metered. If you don't get the power, how do they make the money? I think they need to. The story you're discussing now is not one that I have read. Okay.
And so the many points there that I would raise as questions, I have no clue. Number one, this is a memorandum of understanding.
Yeah.
Between
Chinese consortiums, with the federal government.
on distribution.
Yeah. Let me just take the top line. We're not supposed to. The federal government of Nigeria, represented by the Ministry of Power, has signed a $463 million, that's 365 billion naira memorandum of understanding over distribution lines upgrade. That's with the Chinese consortium.
Okay, the reason I'm saying this, the Siemens project essentially is concerned with transmission.
Oh, it's transmission, yes.
Transmission.
Okay.
Because the value chain is generation,
transmission,
distribution.
That's
is the last mile.
Thanks for that.
So if it is, my concern is if it is distribution they are talking about, that is the business of the discos. And the discos have since been privatized. So it's only the transmission company of Nigeria that is wholly owned by the federal government. Even though the various tiers of government have investments in the discos, but I would imagine that if you are getting into this kind of transaction, is the federal government guaranteeing it, or is the federal government the signatory?
I didn't quite read the story fully. Yeah, that's a very good point, because transmission is what the federal government is mandated to handle.
Yes.
Distribution, transformers,
private business.
It's actually for the discos.
For the discos. And of course, and it is clear that they have mismanaged it. The federal government, through the central bank, pumped in a lot of money into the discos. We have the meter problem. How many persons have access to meters? Then there are many transformers, all kinds of issues. So
I've actually read that story, but I think we would look out for details of that story in the coming days, because at the moment it's not clear, about what the discos will be doing as regards, this distribution and what the federal government plans to do. And looking at the money involved, of course, we should raise some questions. But the particular story that I really want to talk about, or want us to look at, is the plans by the federal government to reabsorb retired military officers. I'm just asking the question here because I think a few days ago, or rather many days ago, we saw the report about the health sector, where we were told that retired doctors will be reabsorbed and all of that. So I just want to ask, because there's a figure out there that says that we have more young people in the country. So a situation where people who are retired are being called back to service. Is that the right way to go? Or are we supposed to be thinking about how to get our young people actively involved in different sectors? So, generally now, what's the right thing to do?
Kingsley, are you weighing in on that? Because I have something very...
Yeah, again, I read that story, but I was puzzled by it. Now, you see, for the doctors, I don't have any issues with that. Bring retired doctors, because we are having a dearth of qualified healthcare givers on account of mass immigration. And so for the medical personnel, I don't have issues with that, but it is for the retired military personnel. Because there's an ongoing, and it's been so because it's an issue we have engaged on Good Morning Nigeria, what is called a debarment service allowance, or a service debarment allowance. When you are retired, the government pays you so that you don't use your skill and knowledge against the state. Because you've been trained in all kinds of things, in security, weapons handling, and so on and so forth. Yes. So the government pays you that. There was a shortfall. President Buhari, as it then was, approved payment, and I think it's an ongoing thing. So, but you also have the reservists. Whether reservists are called from time to time, it's a moot point. Now, are we having a shortage of personnel on the front lines to warrant the engagement of retired personnel? The other issue that was also said was that, why don't you get more retired personnel as private security guards? Get the companies to engage them, and then because of the skills that they have also learned, they could have a part of civil defense activity. I don't mean the civil defense as an organization, but in terms of civil policing duties and so on.
Strategy.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yes. So
one sentence only, please. Yes, if it's for them to be on active duty, that I would not be able to talk about. But if if it's the doctors among them, it's the people in the medical line, don't ever underestimate the place of experience. The surgeons we have now rely on old hands to lead them in the theater. Very important.
Okay.
That's it.
Yes, I'm just, a little bit worried about the young people because if we're not doing our best to bring them on board, I'm just thinking what would happen in the next few years when the retired ones, or rather the older ones, are gone. Okay, so even while we're trying to bring retired ones, I think the younger ones should also be carried along. Leaving the young ones to just leave the country in terms of the medical issue. Something should be done to make them stay, so that they can also be trained, and then in a short time they can also become...
Talking about making them stay, somebody told me something that I felt was tragic. I saw him writing case notes and all that. I said, you're spending too much time. I said, I want to take over for the next person very easy. He said, Chukudi, look at this hospital. Let me tell you, there are two sets of people. Either people who have almost got their papers to leave, or people who are on the verge of leaving. That is not good for us.
All right, let's just hope that we'll have more time to talk about this, and also the federal government would, sit down and look at how, some of these issues can be addressed. That's a newspaper review for today on Good Morning Nigeria. We'll take a break. When we come back, of course, we shall begin our discussion on the advertising industry. Please stay with us.
You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Now, as a prompt for our conversation, which is ongoing advertising industry reforms, let's listen to a background that compiled by our correspondent, Abdulsalam Jibril.
In 2021, the Advertising Regulatory Council of Nigeria, ARCON, embarked on a move towards sanitization and enforcement of global best practice in the country's advertising industry. Recently, the Minister of Information and National Orientation, Muhammad Idris, approved the full implementation of the advertising industry reform. The minister noted that the reform will promote local content and production, pointing out that many opportunities in the industry are lost to other countries. As part of the reform process, ARCON banned the production of indigenous advertisements in foreign countries, adding that such would reduce unemployment and improve the national economy. ARCON stressed that advertisers must stop the capital flight and development of other countries' economies by going out of the country to produce adverts meant for the Nigerian market, thereby killing the advertising industry. However, the Advertisers Association of Nigeria, ADVAN, the umbrella body of corporate advertisers in Nigeria, have filed a suit against ARCON and the federal government over the ongoing advertising industry reforms. ADVAN claims that the reforms initiated by ARCON are unconstitutional and infringe on the legal rights of advertisers and their members. The association also alleges that the reforms are aimed at exploiting and impoverishing the Nigerian advertising industry. Some of the contentious issues raised by ADVAN include media rates deregulation, 45-day industry credit policy, use of local talent, production of advertisement outside Nigeria, disengagement protocol, copyright and engagement policy. Some experts maintain that the current squabble between ARCON and ADVAN has become a clog in the wheel of progress within the advertising industry. Other analysts insist that the development will help sanitize the industry when the dust is settled. These will form part of discussions as guests speak to advertising industry reforms in Nigeria shortly.
Many thanks for that background report. And to discuss advertising industry reform, let's welcome our guest in the studio. We have with us Dr. Olalekan Fadolapo, the Director General, Advertising Regulatory Council of Nigeria, ARCON. Glad to have you and Good Morning Nigeria.
Good morning, Nigeria. All right, also here with us in the studios is Dr. Yemisi Bangboshe, Executive Secretary, Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria. Dr. Bangboshe, we're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you very much. Good morning.
All right, Femi Odubemi, who is CEO and Executive Producer at Zuri 24 Media, is a writer, film maker, and TV content producer. Mr. Odubemi, we're glad to have you this morning.
Thank you.
Okay. All right, so yeah,
Okay, so to set the tone for this conversation, first and foremost, we'd like to know from the DG, we've been talking about advertising reforms. Could you explain to us what really are these reforms? What is new? What used to be there? And then what's the future like for the advertising industry in Nigeria?
Now, let me first start by explaining the advertising ecosystem. What we call the advertising ecosystem. Now, there are three pillars that makes up the advertising industry. Three pillars. The first is the advertiser. The second, the agency. And the third, the media. Now, the advertisers have their own association that we call Advertisers Association of Nigeria. Now, for the agency business, they specialize in different areas. Some above the line, some below the line. Now, for the people that are doing below the line, which is activation, experiential, they have their own association we call XMAN, Experiential Marketers Association of Nigeria. We have another group of people we call Association of Advertising Agencies of Nigeria, and we also have the MIPAN, Media Independence Practitioners Association of Nigeria. That's for the agency leg. Now, for the media leg, the media is divided into three. We have the broadcast, we have the print, and we have the out of home. Now, for the broadcast, we have BON, Broadcasters Organization of Nigeria, as their own association. For the print, we have Newspaper Proprietors Association of Nigeria. And for the out of home, we have the OAN, Outdoor Advertisers Association of Nigeria. Now, in terms of our own regulatory remit, our law gives us the mandate and power to regulate advertising, advertisement, and marketing communication in all its ramifications. Now, for every industry, you have the primary regulator, you have the secondary regulator for every industry, depending on which business the industry is doing or the players or operator. For example, if you are an advertiser and you are in insurance business, NICOM is your primary regulator. But because you do the business of advertising, we cover the space as it affects advertising business. Now, for the agency, their primary business is advertising. So we are their primary regulator. When they go into other sphere, then they have other regulatory issues to tackle. Now, for the media, again, content is divided into three. We were talking about content. There's information, there's entertainment, there's advertising in content. So the broadcast media primary responsibility is not advertising. Their focus is news and entertainment, which some people will tell you infotainment. So they have NBC as their own primary regulator. Now, for the print, it is also not us, because their primary business is not advertising. However, for the out of home, everything about them is pure advertising business. So we take responsibility. So in all, our own remit covers the creative agency and the out of home. That's on one part. The second part has to do with the reform we're talking about. When I assumed duty, I reach out to all the sectoral groups, because obviously the industry was not doing fine. We were just coming out of COVID and so many things, disruption. So we sat down and we said, we need to rethink the industry model. The basis, the industry framework, the architecture of that advertising industry need to be rethink. One, to align with best global practices. Two, to ensure that Nigerians also take benefit from advertising as services. So, I've been in this industry for over 25 years. So this is what I've done for the better part of my life. However, we sat down as an industry. So I reached out to all the sectoral groups. Now, ADVAN, that's the Advertisers Association of Nigeria, BON, Broadcasters Organization of Nigeria, we reached out to everyone, send representatives, so that these committees can sit down and work. So the committee went into session. And when they went into their session, they came up with a report on areas that we need to rethink and relook for the industry to have a future. Now, some of these things have to do with the way the business is being done. And you cannot do business the same old way and expect a new result. So basically, what are the highlights of these reforms? Number one, media rate deregulation. Globally, there's nowhere in the world that the advertisers and the agency determines the rate that media houses charge for their advertisement globally. But in Nigeria, we have a body we call HASG, Heads of Advertising Sectoral Groups. Now, that HASG as president of all the sectoral groups, because we practice dual regulation in Nigeria. That regulation meaning that we practice both the statutory regulation and the self-regulation. Now, the statutory regulation comes in where the self-regulation fails. And you know the way we are wired. If we write you to ask you, give us this information, the first thing you ask is, do you have a right? Or you go to court to challenge that your mandate does not cover that. Now, so this group sat down and said, what do we do? So they gave us the regulation of media. We need to lift that, remove it. Because the media houses buy their stuff, materials, from the same global market that the advertisers also do. Nobody controls the price of the advertisers. The ticket for flight, you just wake up last week, they told you because there's no fuel, they have increased it. They won't sit down with a group of people and say, so why do you want the media owners to subject their rate increase to your approval? One part. The second part, there are media organizations that operate in Nigeria. All those big media organizations. They wake up and increase their media rate, advertisement rate. Now, when they do, the advertisers don't have control or lien over them. That is foreign media operating in Nigeria. However, the advertisers and the agencies wants to sit down and control media rate. And we said no. Let demand and supply takes precedence over that. So let media houses charge whatever rate they think is economical to sustain their operation. Now, you being the buyer, you can now decide. If you are not comfortable with media station A, you move to station B. But telling those media houses this is what they should charge, it is completely not acceptable. That is on one part. So we deregulate media rate. Secondly, globally, there's what we call payment threshold. Payment threshold means that the circle for which payments must be done within the industry. And this is applicable to almost all the industries. Now, in Europe, it is 30 days. Meaning that when you start your campaign, you send the material in. Within 30 days, you get your money. In fact, in some economy, you don't need to send your payment, media purchase order, or certificate of transmission before your days count. If I send you material as NTA and you flight the material on 1st of January, the 30 days start counting from that day. That is a sane economy where things work well. But what do we have in Nigeria today? The advertisers pushing for 120 days. No, that 120 days in most cases is not also 120 days. Ask the people in the industry. Sometimes this 120 days can become 6 months. Sometimes few days to the 120 days, your invoice can get missing. Now, it now makes it look like the agencies and the media houses are financing the operation of the advertisers. At the end of the year, they declare profits. They pay the dividends. They move whatever they want to move. But the people that are in that ecosystem, they are not paid. You are still having huge debt and you are moving money. Now, what is applicable in other markets? For example, in South Africa and most of the African market, it is 45 days. So when the committee met, in fact, at the committee meeting, there was a series of going forth and back, where some were requesting for prepayment. So they aligned and said, okay, let's use best Africa business practices and let's do 45 days. Again, there was also another law in another regulatory framework that is even stipulating 45 days. So they came and recommended 45 days. And we said, okay, fine. Let the industry adopt this policy. There's nothing new in this. Some years ago in this Nigeria, insurance business were told at the back end. I can buy insurance from you. I will not pay you. I'll buy it on credit. And that insurance cover will fall due for renewal. You can still renew for me on credit. So the industry was bedridden with debt. And NICOM came and said, look, we can't continue to run business like this. No payment, no cover. And that is what is obtainable in Nigerian insurance company of today. So how do you want the media owners to take benefit of their investment? If you want to consistently owe, how do you want them to take benefit? Now, we are saying a situation where some advertisers will even tell you as a media, please bill me or send your invoice on quarterly basis. Quarterly basis simply means like if you do your business with any business you do for them January, February, March, you can send the invoice in April. Now, if you are now doing 120 days with that particular advertiser, so when your invoice get into their system in April, they start counting 120 days, which is 4 months. April, May, June, July. Before you get your money, it will now September, October. Now, at that point, what was the value of money when this started? What was, so all these things are the things killing the Nigerian media industry. Transparency, no. Unethical practices, exploitation, corporate slavery. So we said, no. You people go to other markets and you apply the same policy. You go to South Africa, you pay 45 days. The same marketing director will be transferred from South Africa to Nigeria and will start 120. Why? And because the regulatory framework is very weak. So how do we sustain the growth in that sector? And don't forget again that...
Okay. You know what, I'll pause you, Dr. Fadolapo, because you've spoken some industry peculiar issues, spoken about industry peculiar issues. And Dr. Yemisi Bambushe is here, Executive Secretary of BON, Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria, because we have viewers who are not necessarily media people. But you were landing on the point that the media is finding itself shortchanged in the advertising ecosystem, and therefore part of the justification for the reforms. We'll get into the reforms proper, but I just want Dr. Bambushe to also weigh in here and say, look, you've heard what the DG of Arcon was saying. Is it that the media industry actually found itself on the back foot on account of the practices usually encouraged and advanced by advertisers and their agencies?
Thank you very much. Let me start from the beginning that BON was part of that committee that was set up. BON is a member of head of advertising sectorial groups, and BON was effectively represented in that committee. Maybe people are looking at it from the angle that Arcon is the one that is championing this. It shouldn't be, because it was a decision taken at the level of that sectorial group, and BON was represented. You will agree with me today that the media is only surviving because of the will, the will to survive. It will not be an understatement to say that the media is already crippled. And the media is crippled because of the way other sectors are treating the media. Let me remove the government-owned organizations that they have the support of government one way or the other, maybe in paying salary and funding some capital project. But when you look at those that are operating, purely on private level, you'll see today that the media is already dead. They are only on air trying to fulfill their callings to make sure that they continue to perform their roles. If there is any sector that has been terribly, battered in the ecosystem of advertising, it is the media. We have suffered, the media has suffered and is still suffering a terrible blow in terms of payment for the services that they have rendered for advertisers and advertising agencies. In fact, the account DG was saying 90 days. It's not even 90 days. I have on my table, complaints of, stations that advertising agencies are owing up to 5 years, up to even 7 years, and not thousands. We are talking of millions of jobs that they have effectively performed, and they refuse to pay them. And by the time you now find out why did you not pay, the answer will be maybe the advertiser has not paid the advertising agency. In some cases, you get to the offices of these advertising agencies, they have relocated, and you are unable to track the money. And it's such, we are in a precarious situation that needed to be waded into. That is why I said, in this case, it is not the decision of ACOM basically, but the decision of the sectorial group. And you want to find out why is it that is happening like that? What is the situation in other countries? We navigated and we tried to find out what is the situation in other countries. In fact, in many countries, even in Africa, it's about prepayment. There was a time about 2 years ago, the media in Nigeria has decided that we are no longer going to pay, to receive job not paid for before services. But I think it was part of that reason that ACON asked the sectorial groups to meet, because media had said we've tried everything to make sure that the money is paid as at when due. Even if it is 90 days, but it's not even 90 days in this case, like I said. So media decided that, well, whatever may be the situation, bring your money before we do your services for you. But
all right, Dr. Bangushe, I think I get what you're trying to say now. From what has been said so far, it looks like the media has been the one suffering from all the issues in the advertising
even
industry.
Including the issue of determining the rate.
So I'm wondering, why did Bond not do something about it? Or why didn't we hear about all of this until ACON decided to, take it upon themselves to fight for the media industries? Why in media industry? Why is it that Bond or other organizations, in the media industry did not do something about this before now?
These are issues that are always on the front burner every now and then. Whenever we hold the General Assembly of Bond, part of our communique, part of our decision.
Okay.
And again, you see, at times you take the normal route, just like he said. Bond is on a secondary ecosystem of ACON. The major regulator of bond members is the NBC. So all this we have been channeling through ACON to make sure that we rectify. And in each of this time, we take decisions on what we need to do. So it has always been on the front burner discussing it.
It has been on the front burner, yes, but I think it's now it's now really in the front burner that everybody can see and hear about the issues. Femi Odugbemi, I would like you to quickly respond, because I see that you're the CEO, executive producer of Zurich 24 Media. Could you please tell us, why is it that the media, or rather, yes, the media and the organizations, that govern the media, have not been able to take a stand on this issue? Is it that the media is weak, or is it that, just let me know exactly what is going on. Is it that, because I'm just thinking that the media has the power. For example, you decide not to take adverts. If all the media organizations come together and say, oh, we are being owed, or this is happening, even without ACON, you can do something about this and get a way to get your money. So why is it that ACON had to intervene, and why is it that the broadcast, or rather the media, not just broadcast now, have been suffering in the hands of advertisers?
Well, I've been in advertising. I was in advertising for roughly about
So you guys are the ones dealing with the media industry?
I work in the third tier in the creative sector. The creative sector actually provides the services like voiceover artists, models, producers who make TV commercials, who make radio commercials. And we have production companies that have invested as well in equipment, in processes, in people to supply TV commercials. TV commercials are not made by the media organizations, but they are flighted by the media organizations. So effectively, the problem is that whilst they are owed money, the production sector doesn't even see the business at all, simply because what this rule does is actually reopen an opportunity for the supply chain to actually be Nigerian. So what he is saying, I think, covers essentially your question in that it's very difficult because they are, how shall I say, they are under a regulator. The regulator is actually doing the right thing to set up the framework upon which what you call the protocol of practice will lie. And so that they haven't taken the steps you're asking is that they have chosen not to take extra, what we say, extraordinary steps out of the protocol of practice. But for me, the reason I'm here is because while we're talking about what this regulation stops, this regulation also creates opportunity for made in Nigeria productions to once again find life. Just some 5 years, 10 years ago, hundreds of millions of naira were being used to make Nigerian commercials outside of Nigeria. And what that meant really was that actors, voiceover artists, TV producers, TV production companies were actually going out of business steadily. I was president of the Independent Television Producers Association for 4 years. When I started being president, we had roughly about 120 production companies whose principal business was supplying services to advertising. By the time I was leaving, because of the quantum of business that was being shipped out of the country, today there is less than 60 members of ITPAN, that is 60 surviving companies. Okay. And those companies have people who are employed in them. So for us, this regulation is not about what is being addressed, it's also about what is being created. And I think that's also important to say.
Mr. Femi Odubele, thank you very much for weighing in. Now, there are, as it were, two issues we have on the table right now, and they are all covered by the ongoing reforms in the advertising industry. One, the apparent short-changing of the media. Two, local production companies. And I remember that the former Minister of Information, Lai Mohammed, was our guest on Good Morning Nigeria when these reforms were rolled out. I mean, sometime last year or the year before, I'm not quite sure. And he tried to explain the rationale for it, that there were some productions for advertising to be flighted in Nigeria taking place in East African countries, in Kenya and South Africa, and that must stop. That's part of what we are talking about. So we'll come back to that. But I just want us to return to the question of the media, because not many persons understand why the media industry is struggling, as Wang Bushi tried to explain. You get old for months on end, even years on end, and then at the end of the day, you're unable to pay your staff, and people then complain about ethical issues around media practitioners and so on. But DJ, I want to take you back to what happened about 3 decades ago, and to say whether the advertising ecosystem in Nigeria isn't rotting in and out, and therefore what you are trying to do, whether you can still carve on a rotten piece of wood. Over 30 years ago, the media industry, in particular the print media, had the same problem. You extend credit to the agencies and therefore to the advertisers. Months on end, nobody pays you. And so the credit was piling and piling and piling. I remember Alex Ibro, God bless his soul, publisher of The Guardian, issued a directive after a board meeting to say no more credit. Cash and carry. You pay for your advertising and then you will get it published. And that was a cure for this menace that you had over time. But after a while, they probably just gave some window to others. Of course, because you had a terrific product in the Guardian newspapers and group of publications, and you wanted your product to be exposed in the Guardian, you had to come with payment. If you say you were bringing a check, your check had to clear before the advert was published. Because before that, there were instances people would say, oh yeah, no, just run it, I'll bring your money within 48 hours. 48 days later, you are chasing the individual, nothing is happening. 48 weeks later, you are chasing the person. So, as you were saying, as you were giving the background, I was just smiling because I remember this experience with the Guardian newspapers. And since the narrative changed, and for a while, of course, the others began imitating what was going on. But my question really is this. What is happening that advertisers and agencies try to take advantage of the media at all times? Because when a meeting was held at that time, advertisers said, look, we're paying. And the agencies were alleged to be trading with those funds.
Okay, thank you very much. You were asking Dr. Bangboshi some time ago that why as born could not take the industry by the own. It's a difficult thing, very difficult. Within Bond, there are companies. When they take a law, let me give you an example. There's a sector, without mentioning the name of the sector. There's one particular advertiser that was owning that sector. Almost everybody in that sector. Almost everybody. And that sector had a GM. And they decided at that AGM that all of us will not do business with this particular advertiser. So after that resolution, they went home. One of their members, or some of their members, came back and said, we have an existing contract with that advertiser. And because of that, we cannot stop it because it will take us to court and there will be trouble. They now say, okay, run out your contract. Now, at the tail end of the contract, they now came back, they say we have an automatic renewal clause in that contract. So we cannot just terminate. Now, it is a difficult task. I was on a committee.
And it wasn't a breach of contract for the advertiser to have been owned.
So you can imagine the seat that I am now. Now, the industry reform is about how do we do things properly. The media is just one leg of the entire industry reform. You said something now, that the agencies will owe and owe and owe. There has been abuses. There has been, like, you are owing me, I'm owing you. Everybody is right. But as a regulator, I can tell you that everybody in the industry, each and all the sectors are wrong. So what do I need to do? First, to bring everybody to the table. And we need to agree a business protocol. For example, as part of that reform, there's what we call now agency disengagement protocol. What does that say? Advertiser can fire their agency based on their contract. However, when you are firing your agency, sit down and do reconciliation with them. Put a closure to that transaction. So as a regulator, I can know this is where the money is. Then I can come in. Another one, Nigeria as a country, we have over 200 million people. At least that is the figure available to us. Meaning that there's no face you want, you can't get in Nigeria. There's no voice you want, you can't get in Nigeria. Now, as a country, why do we still go to other countries to bring more there? Now, you come to Nigeria, you want to market your products. You are going to make your profit in Nigeria. And yet, you want to do your communication. You still want to go and bring a model who cannot pronounce Onaleko. All in the name of globalization. Whereas within that sector, there is localization. Let me give you another example. For you to do an advert, like Mr. Dubemi said, you need a village. you need a model, you need a voiceover artist, you need a production house, you need a director of production, you need security, you need a crew and everything. So sometimes the budget for advertising can be as much as 500 million, 700 million, 1 billion to shoot a commercial. Now, you now take that money, you take it to another country. What do you want? Location. We have location here. You now take it to another country. You now finish that money, 1 billion naira, 500 million. You finish it. You now come back to Nigeria with a flash drive. You fly back with a flash drive. Then now money you have invested in that economy. You now come back with a flash drive. So you give it to the media houses and say, plug and play. I will pay you in 120 days. The same flash drive you now give to CNN and say, please take your money in advance. Now, how do we grow Nigeria?
No, my question is, explain the mentality that governs this kind of disposition.
Okay, yes. In explaining this mentality, I will ask the advertisers to do, and the agencies, the advertising agencies, because what we are saying now, the government stated it, this administration stated it from day one. As a government, we will stop leakages, we will grow talent, and we will ensure that we create jobs for Nigeria. Imagine your son or my son being used as a model, and you are paying him 5 million, 10 million naira for modeling and things like that. The money will go round. But this stage, you take that money out. I had an advert that I had to stop. They are kids. And we told them, okay, give us the validation that these kids are Nigerians. They say, hey, you see, their parents are Nigerians, but because they were born in Kenya, and we have to act those things. How do you explain that?
All right, Dr. Fodalapo, that's a good point. Yes, I actually, you will come in, of course, okay. You will respond to what he has said. But I also have a question. You know, I tried to ask you initially that, you know, as Bond, do you think there's an issue in the media industry that makes the advertisers to be able to play with them?
Of course, there are many issues.
Because I'm just thinking. I'm thinking.
There are many issues.
So that's what I want you to address, because you know, this affects all of us. Because I'm thinking that if the media industry was actually firm, right, and then you have the right content, you can stand on your own, and the advertisers come and you say, well, I want my money before I air your product. If there's unity, I mean, amongst the media houses, and you stand on that, they don't even have to come. I mean, Akon doesn't have to speak for you. They would have to pay because they want their product out there. So I'm saying, why is it that the media is so weak to the point that they would take these commercials, air it, you know, not pay staff, their own staff, not, I mean, buy diesel on credit, and just make the media house look like a rat hole. Well, I don't know. Some state media organizations do that, from my experience. So why is it that the media organization is that weak?
It was a deliberate attempt to weaken the media and market.
So what is Bond doing about it?
Excuse me. It is not about what is Bond doing about it. It is about the regulation. You understand? Deliberately, APCON of those days deliberately put into legislation things that will weaken the media. There is no country where they want the media to be very strong, if you don't know. And that is why you see a lot of regulations everywhere. You see that NBC is always coming up with regulations that will cow the media. So it is a deliberate attempt, even on the part of government. I think APCON of those days, until now that he is now injecting regulatory in terms of the law. Before now, it was a self-regulation. There was no law to say, okay, you have to pay between so and so time. So the media is fluid. You know, a lot of issues there. It depends. There are so many meetings and decisions, but it's about self-regulation. You understand? But now that everybody has now realized that it is a deliberate attempt to weaken the media, and now there's opportunity for us to key into it. And that was why when this opportunity came, Bond was able to send a very strong representation, and we made our point known that the issue of 90 days is no longer, acceptable. But how will you defend it? How will you implement it? You can only implement it if there is a law, if there is a policy. Because at the end of the day, even will the media go and beat them in the advertising industry? Will you take hooligans there to go and destroy their properties? You can only report back to an agency, and the regulatory agency in this case is ACON, and that is why the bond is strongly saying that ISOP that people are complaining about, as far as the media sector is concerned, we are in total support of that. For example, now he mentioned about the aviation raising the cost of flight from Abuja, internally within the country. What of other products? Did they ask the media before they increased their own prices? No. But why should the advertiser and the advertising agencies insisting that before the media will increase? When they were increasing the cost of diesel, did they consult the media? When government was about to increase the cost of petrol, did they consult the media? So why should somebody now be saying that you have to consult them before the media will increase its own price? So okay, there are issues.
Dr. Bangoshe,
yes, sir.
So that we can get this, because at the end of the day, when you're dealing with theory, it's useful to explore some of the ramifications. You've been long enough in this, and happily you're also, you were, I don't know whether you're still a comrade, but you were at our president. Yeah. But how does one understand the behavior of Nigerian advertisers and the agencies? Because I was referencing what happened about 3 decades ago, and part of the allegation at that time was that advertisers were paying the agencies, and some of the agencies were trading with the money. And trading included placing the funds in a fixed deposit. If you remember, fixed deposit rates were very useful. And then some of them were also trading in Forex with the monies that ordinarily should come to the media. And that created some distortion in the ecosystem. A number of those agencies are long dead now, and that's because you can't carry on with that kind of practice and survive for a long time. But how do we understand the behavior? Do the players in the industry have a round table to discuss these issues? Advertisers, agency, and media, including the media producers, to say, look, this is a problem we are having as part of self-regulation, because the fact that we have a statutory regulator does not obviate self-regulation. Look.
You see, the fact of the matter is that, at the level of the media, the media is a little bit fragmented. You are equally discussing about the print, you are discussing about the broadcast, and even within the broadcast, you have the private sector, you have the government-owned media. There have been a lot of decisions. In fact, it was part of those steps that led to this reform that is happening. Because there was a time the media, the bond met and said, okay, there's going to be a decision that nobody should take any advert on credit, prepay. In fact, there is a particular organization, I wouldn't want to mention the name of the organization, among the advertisers. Their auditor came from abroad, and in auditing their own document, they discovered that they are owing media. And the auditor issued a query to them that, why are you owing media here in Nigeria? And they began to find a lot of excuses, the harsh economic environment, and this and that. Because the auditor told them that is not the prevailing condition in other countries where they have the same company, the same operation. No, that was why I said, initially, if there had been law in a way to say, if you violate this is going to happen, it's possible. And you know what they do? If you want me to come out, there are a lot of things I don't want to say on air. The point is that if today you report agency A to us, and we now report that agency A to ACON, and eventually that agency A is penalized, because they know the media house that has reported, they now come into an alliance by saying not to patronize that media organization anymore.
Dr. Bangoshe, I'm not impressed with this response that you're giving. Because I'm not impressed. I don't think that, you know...
I don't need to impress you.
No, what I'm saying
I
is...
don't need to... just listen. I don't need to impress you. I only need to bring things the way they are.
Yes.
I don't need to impress
you know, the reason I'm asking is because I have... You know, I'm in the media industry, and we see a lot of people in the media industry who are workers who are not being paid salary because they are not generating money. Like you said, advertisers are not paying. That's why they cannot pay staff. Now, have the media houses, I'm just trying to say, for example, if there are so many organizations that, you know, they protest, things are not working and all that, the media industry, not for once, I'm a young person, maybe other people here couldn't explain to me. If one day, I'm just saying, all the media houses decide to shut down and protest, these are the issues that we have. I'm sure some of these issues would have been resolved. But we keep quiet and we air other people's problems and keep quiet on the issues that are disturbing us. And that's the reason why we continue to suffer. But let me quickly get to...
let me give you an example of what you're saying. You see, of recent, the spectrum that the media is using in Nigeria is to be sold, if it has not been sold. And the media came out openly that this is the situation. And there is a decision that we should shut out stations. And there are stations that are saying that, no, we are government stations. It will not be possible for you to shut down the station. With bond, go and bring police to come and shut down that station. There are a lot of issues on the current...
How many government stations do we have compared to the private organizations that are running in this country?
There are, how many? Let me put NTA as one. Then there are 37 stations.
How many media stations do we have in the country in total?
Oh, we have over 600 stations.
Good. So 37 to 600.
And out of that, over, you know, he told you something. A decision was taken in Lagos that, okay, 01, all, you must not take advert. And the following morning, somebody went to say that we are not part of that decision.
But I mean, there should be other ways that, you know, media organizations can find a way to solve their problems.
There are a lot of issues,
Okay, well, let's just leave that, you know, conversation at that point. But I have a question for Femi Odugbemi, but that will be after the break. So we'll just quickly take a break now. When we come back, the discussion will continue. All right, welcome back. It's still Good Morning Nigeria live on the network service of the NTA. And our topic for discussion today is the ongoing reform in the advertising industry. And of course, our guests are still very much with us. Before we went on that break, I was just about to ask Femi Odugbemi, who is right here and who says you were part of the advertisers and all of that. So now with these reforms, of course, from what we've heard, the reforms are credible. These are things that should be talked about, things that we need, local content, have the media houses being paid and all of that. So, but why is ADVAN, Advertisers Association of Nigeria, kicking against this reform?
I would have no idea. I can tell you that. There is, for me, what I always say, there is always the law, the spirit of the law, and then the spirit of the law. And I think when I talked about protocol of practice, it has a lot to do with ethics, it has a lot to do with integrity, it has a lot to do with doing business, trusting that the common good of all is what we are all individually committed to. I would find no specific reason why any sectoral group would have a problem with saying when you get a service, you pay for the service. I don't know why anyone will have a problem with pay for the service when the money still has the value for those who provided the service to be able to continue to do business. I would not understand why it would be difficult for anybody to oppose if you are going to make something for Nigeria, to make it in Nigeria, simply because it's more authentic. Obviously, if you're speaking to Nigerians, it would be nice if the people speaking are Nigerians, they look Nigerians, and of course, today...
They can pass the message clearly.
In the world that you live in, like the global world that you live in, there is something called hyperlocal. In fact, if you speak to anybody at Netflix today, you want to tell them a story, they don't want local to global anymore. They want hyperlocal. Why? The authenticity of your story can only be from you. And so today you have all the major global platforms in Nigeria looking for the Nigerian story. Today, 30 years later, Nollywood is recognized everywhere in the world. Nollywood is Nigerians who are creatives, who are performers, who are the storytellers. Across the world today, our music is everywhere. Across the world today, so you cannot then say, you cannot find writers, you cannot find producers, you cannot find actors and models, you cannot find musicians who are good enough for your product if the whole world is appreciating.
Okay, this is why I want to ask this question, because the reforms didn't kick in just yesterday. It's been for a while, and then we've had a resistance to the reforms. But what has been the experience of the producers since these reforms kicked in, and since we started having the resistance? You said your size dwindled to run about 60 or thereabout. Is patronage on the climb again, or is static, or is declining?
Well, there is a lot of hope. There is, obviously, when you put this sort of regulation on the table, it also asks questions of those of us who are going to provide the services to improve our services. So you'll find that there is an expansion of training. There's an expansion of investments. There is hardly any equipment you're looking for to make a TV commercial that is not now within Nigeria. Africas was just recently a couple of days ago, and if you had gone to where Africas was holding, there was no single production equipment manufacturer that was not here in Nigeria. Those are the knock-on effects of regulations like that, because what those institutions see is possibilities. If we bring back all those jobs, if we give opportunity to our creators, what it does is expand the economy of advertising itself. And so for me, it's not just about sustaining the status quo or making sure that we regularize the payment systems. It's also about creating jobs. It's also about creating, a better storytelling. So for me, this regulation is really very important to a much broader group within the media, quote unquote.
All right. So Dr. Fadolapo, I like you because you were talking about the reforms, and then you've talked about the media industry, and then local content. Could you tell us other aspects of the reforms, and then what is ARCON doing to ensure that other stakeholders are a part of this whole new, initiative to ensure that there's success in the industry?
Thank you very much. For us, we have our allegiance to the federal government, and the directive from the Honorable Minister is go ahead and ensure you implement this reform, because it has values, it creates jobs, it makes sure that we retain investment, we grow local talent, capacity and capability building in the industry and stuff. But when this reform started, what I did was to go out to all sectoral groups. In fact, I don't want to overemphasize my engagement. Last 2 Sundays, I was still with the Independent Television Producers Association of Nigeria. I was with them in Maryland, where we were doing a review of how far we've gone with this reform and how their members have been able to take benefits. I've had a session with the AFWA, Association of Voice-Over Artists of Nigeria, led by Mr. Shegun Arinze, and we are also we also look at how we come in terms of capacity building. I've had a session, in fact, road show with BON. The road show, we were in Abuja with their group. We also had to present to OAN, even Advan. We have had meetings on different occasions. There is no time any sector of the industry asks me to come or want to visit me that I did not make myself available.
Is there compliance with the reforms, particularly with respect to production?
Yes, we have gone far. We have gone far. Now, some Nigerians can tell you, if you look at the space now, you can see that the rate of foreign faces has reduced. The rate of foreign voices have reduced, because we need to do inclusive growth. Inclusive growth to the extent that advertising is an economic enabler. And like you were just saying, it's not easy for almost all these media houses to face the advertiser or the agencies. And so they need a regulatory framework within which they can come and say, whatever we are doing is within the scope of the law. So Abuja, Proman is back. MCON, that's the electronic content, they are back and they are getting better business. The plea to me is to suspend the reform. But the Honorable Minister of Information and Culture has directed, Honorable Minister of Information and National Orientation, Alhaji Mohammed Idris, has directed that I should be giving him updates on the implementation. So for me, it's going into town, engaging agencies and ensuring part of the reform includes, for example, respecting the creativity and intellectual property of Nigerians. You have a situation whereby you make a presentation to someone and before you realize it, bam, the thing is flighted. And you'll be careful. If I fight, they may not give me another business. So we take it up. What the reform says is Nigerians' intellectual property must be respected. Anybody, either agency or advertiser, that violates that, we have us to contend with. And so you know that your intellectual property. I have a situation, for example. Somebody came and said it was being owed over 200 million. And we said, wow, the advertiser, the agency, and I said, okay, fine. We want us to, because we have a committee, we call ISOP committee. Bring me the document. And the man said, you see, the MD of that place, we met at our club, and we presented to him. I said, okay, give me he showed me a WhatsApp message that the business was approved. I said, so how do I go from here? They will tell you that they don't want to give us contracts. So for you to approach us as a regulatory agency, we stated that all business of advertising, advertisement, and marketing must be in writing.
Yeah, must be in writing. I just want to also ask. I have two questions actually, but I hope it's not too loaded. The first is: are there penalty clauses with regard to non-observance of the reforms? For instance, in producing, they say, look, don't use foreign voiceover artists, don't use foreign models. Now, if an agency in collaboration with an advertiser decides to use those foreigners, what is the penalty? That's one. Two, you've talked about intellectual property rights, and you've also talked about something relating to, if I assume, price fixing. What is your relationship and therefore interface with the Copyright Commission and then with the Federal Competition and Consumer Protection Commission?
Now, let me start by the sanction. That new law, that's our new law, created a body. Our new law created a new body called Advertising Offences Tribunal. Now, that is to give us the opportunity to quickly adjudicate on all matters relating to advertising, advertisement, and marketing communication in Nigeria. So, you flout. We take you before the Advertising Offences Tribunal. So, we have cases that we have listed now for all violations that we are taking there. So, that is the solution to those violations. That's number one. Number two, I personally visited the DG of Nigerian Copyright Commission, and we had a conversation. We had MOU. The MOU now created advertising desk within the NCC, that's Nigerian Copyright Commission, and that is why collaboration with government agency is very strong. As ACON now, if we need to tap into any resources available in any government agency, we can quickly go into it. And for the FCCPC, we are also in very good relationship with them, because you can't do monitoring and enforcement alone. You need to ensure that we tap into other people's strengths, and we are taking those benefits and other government agencies. So we are taking. I'm sorry, let me just quickly add this in. Sometimes ago, there was one advertiser that was owing an agency over around 400, 500 million. That advertiser, the association where the agency belonged, wrote to that advertiser and said, you are owing our members over 400 million. Please let us sit down, sort out this thing and pay. So the advertiser just stopped communication with the agency. They just stopped talking to them. Now let us go ahead. Nobody answered them. So the association wrote to us as a regulator and said, please help us interfere. Now the advertiser has moved on, as in using another agency. So you can have one media house on one brand X, agency 1 will be owing you 200 million, agency 2 will be owing you 200 million, agency 3, because they can change their agency and they can still be doing business. So what did we do? We wrote to the advertiser as a regulator and give them 7 days within which to report to our office, sit down with us and ensure that this issue is resolved. They wrote back to us and said, no, another agency is involved in this. And we told them that, look, if you don't, we will use the power of the law to force you to make sure that we take decision. Within a few days, they came back. And when they came back, we sat in the same room. And we told them that, look, we are a regulator. We will just ensure that it's a level playing ground. So we set up a 4-man committee with them. I said, make sure this issue is resolved. As I'm talking to you now, like 60% of the money has been paid. The remaining is based on give us the COT and certificate of transmission and everything. Now, if we did not do that, the implication is that even the money paid, now that particular, another advertiser can be owing him 500 million. Another one.
But isn't this, thanks a lot, DJ, but gentlemen, when we talk about law and order, these are the elements of it that we just say now. People will tell you that one of the challenges of doing business in Nigeria is the lack of sanctity of contracts. Contracts, offer and acceptance, leveraged, of course, by consideration. An advertising issue you're talking about now will help us expose this from advertiser to agency, agency to media. It's a contract. But people will fully breach the terms of the contract, and then you now start holding all kinds of meetings. That's why I was asking, how do we get out of this? Where provisions of the law are there, but are our courts sufficiently attuned to the harm caused by this willful breach of the terms of contract, so that an agency being owed or media has been owed does not fret before suing to collect? There
are a lot of deficiencies on the part of the media in that regard, and that's exactly what the advertisers are actually, trying to safeguard. You know, they want a situation whereby you can go to any station, just enter into any contract. They don't want any law or any regulation to back it up. They even confess that it is just a decision, it's just a contractual agreement between any advertiser and any station. So even if they can compel you to say, okay, because we are going to give you so volume, it has to be 6 months. That is what they are looking for. And you see, the part of the problem is that the media is such an organization or a sector that will not even talk about itself, but we want to talk about others. And until we are able to talk for ourselves and able to say something, and that is why to us, the media, people will ask you, and you are in the media and you are doing it this way, you need to get a platform on which you can stand for you to say this is exactly what you are doing. And that is why in our own part, we are saying enough of this self-contractual agreement. Let there be an agreement that it will be binding on everybody. If it's going to be 45 days, let it be 45 days. If it's going to be 60 days, let it be 60 days. So if there's any violation, then the media can report back. Then, the problem again is that, yes, the media is now, they have seen it. Like I said, you will attest to the fact that the media, if not because of the strong will, the media is already dead. You see a lot of stations being owed, 100 million. I have one on my table now, about 135 million. In the last 3 years, it was not even paid at all, a private radio station. But the fact of the matter is that by the time you write to those agencies, they will not even reply you. And when they don't reply you, at times they will tell you it is between us and that station. What is the problem of Bond in this regard? And when they show you 90 days or more than 90 days, what do? But if there is a regulation to say that, okay, we have all agreed it has to be 45. So if you wait after 45, even if you give them, okay, moratorium of say 60 days and you don't see, you have something to fall on. And I think that is the way forward, sir.
All right, so because of time, I think we'll begin to round off at this point. Many thanks, Dr. Bangboche. We hope that the media industry will be much stronger and will be alive, or rather will be resuscitated if this reform actually, stands and becomes effective. So I'd like to hear from you, looking at all these reforms now, Mr. Femi Odubemi, what do you see as the future of the advertising industry in Nigeria if these reforms actually take a stand and everybody, abides by it? What's the future, even for the media and then for the advertising industry in general?
Well, growth. I think the focus of the regulation is to expand the economy of advertising. If people get paid when due, obviously they expand also. They build systems, they invest more. For us who are the third tier, all of this percolates to us. It percolates into the expansion of what is already a blooming creative industry. Over 500,000 young people work today in the creative industries as photographers, as singers, as musicians, composers. All of these creatives actually have a career that is waiting, to be incentivized. And it is when this kind of regulations take root that the economy expands. I think that's really what we should focus on, what this regulation can build. Not just what it puts back on track, but what it can build. The possibilities, I think, are endless, and I'm hopeful that all of us will put hands together to look at the possibilities of this regulation rather than its limitations.
All right, Femi Odubemi, writer, filmmaker, TV content producer, CEO of Zuri 24 Media. I would like to thank you for being our guests on Good Morning Nigeria today.
Thank you.
I also would like to appreciate Dr. Yemisi Bangboche, Executive Secretary, Broadcasting Organization of Nigeria, Bonn. Dr. Bangboche, delight having you on the program.
Thank you very much.
Also, the Director General, Advertising Regulatory Council of Nigeria, ALCON, Dr. Olalekan Fadolapo. We appreciate your being with us on the program, and best wishes as you implement the reforms. You're watching Good Morning Nigeria on the network service of the Nigerian Television Authority. Just before we close, would like to inform you that there has been a fire incident at the Rivers State House of Assembly complex. The fire is said to have razed the complex. The governor of Rivers State, Simi Fubara, we are informed, has just addressed the media on the incident, and there is heavy security presence in and around the Rivers State House of Assembly. Once again, the fire has razed the Rivers State House of Assembly complex in Port Harcourt. Details of that development you'll get to hear in our subsequent bulletins. So that does it for us on Good Morning Nigeria today. Thank you for tuning in. Tomorrow is another day, same time, 7 o'clock in the morning. Until then, look after yourselves. I'm Kingsley Sadafo.
And I'm Henry John. Enjoy the rest of your day.